After 28 years in the U.S. Navy, Captain Robert Ronska, known as Navy Bob, learned a thing or two about leadership. But not the kind rooted in rank or authority. He discovered a deeper philosophy he calls leading with love.
I think that everybody on this earth has a purpose in life. And that purpose in life is to help others. You have to have a greater purpose than yourself to be able to do what we did on the submarine force. Instead of worrying about your next promotion or your title or how you can use people to advance yourself, this is leading with love. If the Navy SEALs can do this, anybody can do this.
From submarine captain to healthcare advocate, Navy Bob's journey did not end with retirement. Lessons learned through his military career propelled his reinvention. His story up next on Reinvention at Any Age. How did you end up in this kind of situation?
And that changed the whole trajectory of your life.
This is my light, and I'm going to let it shine. Even if it's uncomfortable, if the change is for the better, it's worth it. Don't be scared. Prepare.
Reinvention is possible. Go make it happen for you today.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I'm Amy Sweezey, and I am passionate about helping you navigate through your reinvention. My guest today reinvented himself after an illustrious 28-year career in the U.S. Navy. He went from commanding a nuclear-powered submarine to leading the largest submarine squadron in the U.S. fleet. He worked as an aide to the President of the United States and even carried the nuclear football, the nuke codes, for President George W. Bush, who's the one that gave him the nickname Navy Bob. Captain Robert Ronska retired in 2018 to start a new career in healthcare, where he used the lessons learned in the military to improve patient safety. He's now authored 2 books, earned his doctorate in business administration, and started his own company called Leading with Love. Please welcome Dr. Robert Navy Bob Ronska to the podcast. Hi, Navy Bob. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Amy. It's such a pleasure and honor to be on with you. Thank you so much.
Well, it is such an honor, first of all, to have you on my podcast. Obviously, I only read a small snippet of the things that you've done in your incredible career serving our country. So just let me, first of all, thank you for your sacrifice and your service, and not only yours, but the sacrifice of your family as well.
Thank you so much, Amy.
So before we get into your reinvention, into the world of healthcare, I just want to start a little bit with your military service. How did you end up in the Navy in the first place? And when you first got in, were you planning on making a 28-year career out of it when you started?
No, great question, Amy. For me, my guiding light at the time was Top Gun. The original movie was out. And so I wanted to join the military to be a pilot. And unfortunately, I didn't have 20/20 vision. And so at the time, PRK or LASIK surgery was not a waiverable option. And so I applied to a merchant marine school. But then I joined the nuclear Navy later, and it's in my book that talks about how I got into the nuclear Navy.
So obviously that was a reinvention right from the beginning, right? You were planning on being a pilot, and then you had to kind of rethink things and reinvent yourself into a different sort of career. And I know when you're in the military, you don't always have much of a choice, right? You think this is what I want to do, but at the end of the day, the military places you where they need you the most, right?
Absolutely. And so I joined the nuclear Navy. And if you look at, if you read my book, I do have imposter syndrome. And even though grew up in a wonderful family, I wasn't the best academics. I was above average. But then I joined the nuclear Navy, where only 1/3 of the accessions from the Naval Academy are qualified enough to go into the nuclear Navy. So they reached out from the ROTC, all the technical schools, and this other program called NUPOC. And so I am surrounding myself in the cream of the crop of our nation, technically, and I'm going into the nuclear program. And I felt initially out of my league. I was always skeptical that I wasn't fitting in. And I started to do really well. I started to really shine. I screened for executive officer, the second in command. when there was only a 42% selection rate. I screened for captain on my first look, which was only 8% of that very elite group. And I was chosen to go interview with the cream of the crop of the other Navy candidates for the naval aide to the president. And so I reflected back in my reinvention. I said, why me? I wasn't anything special. If you read my book, I grew up on a farm, and there was no doubt that explains this. In the title of my book is Leading with Love. I had this mindset that we don't teach in academic schools, we don't teach in leadership schools, is that if you take care of your people that you're serving, you will unleash their full potential. And then all of a sudden, the results of your anything that you're doing, command or team, far exceeds what you could ever imagined. And so when it came through and like, who are they going to select to promote? They picked the person that was a part of this incredible organization. So that was my first reinvention, to realize that, and this was really, really the precipitous of writing this book, is that we're not teaching this in academic institutions. We're not teaching this in leadership courses on how do you build relationships, which your people are your most valued, gifted engine of any organization.
Well, I love that you brought up imposter syndrome because I think a lot of people suffer from that. They feel like they're not worthy of what they either have or what they want and ask, why me? And don't you feel like a lot of times because people don't think they're worthy or don't think they deserve something, that actually holds them back from a reinvention that they could do with their life?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And for those that are listening, if you have any doubt or uncertainty, um, I will tell you, just take the leap and have faith. And that is probably, I couldn't agree with you more, that is holding back so many people to really live their dreams and their purpose. And they get caught in like a quicksand, like, this is what I have to do. There's no way out. And in fact, that, once you were born, that stopwatch has started. There's only thing one certain in life, is that you're going to die. And you can never turn back the clock. So every minute that you don't really look to reinvent yourself, you're taking away the greatest gift that anyone has given you, and it's your life of you being born.
That is a fantastic statement. There's a lot of jobs in the Navy. Obviously, you talked about being a pilot and the nuclear Navy, but you ended up on a submarine. You felt comfortable there. You felt the camaraderie. Was it that cozy, what I might call claustrophobic feeling of being trapped underwater? Did you choose that path, or did that sub life just kind of find you?
So again, I don't choose my life decisions off of movies. So The Hunt for Red October with Sean Connery was just out during this time period. And so I felt it really intriguing to be able to really support this nation with the submarine force. And when I toured the submarine, I really felt that camaraderie, that close-knit family that I once had in college, as I did in with my family. And so that really attracted me, that camaraderie. And out of the 28 years I was in the nuclear Navy, I spent 8 years of my life underwater. I actually counted up all the times that I was at sea, like not in port, at sea, and not consecutively. I was 8 years of my life underwater. Can you imagine spending 8 years of your life underwater? And
No.
so you do, you become numb to it. Yes, there's 130, 140 people on this submarine, and the ballistic missile submarines have 160, 170. You become a family, and you'll go out 6 to 7 months away from your home port with a 92 to 94% op tempo, which means you're underwater for the entire 92 to 94% of 6 or 7 months. And so you get this close knit family feeling. And there were times for 3 months I didn't see sunlight. You saw it through a periscope. And so you have to have this mindset that, yes, you have to have a greater purpose than yourself to be able to do what we did on the submarine force.
Does it do weird things to your body physically, like
Uh,
being underwater for so long?
that's a great question. I will tell you, sometimes when I was gone and not driving a car for 6 months, you would think that's like riding a bike. there were times where I had to think like, all right, where do I put my foot? What do I? So it does. And I don't know, not having sunlight, clearly not having natural sunlight can really impact. And about 3 months into a patrol or a underway period, I could sense that there was a lot more like not arguments, but tensions and so forth. And I do think that that was correlated to not having sunlight.
Yeah, I lived in West Michigan most of my life, many years of my life, and there's not a lot of sun on that side of the state. And I'm telling you, seasonal affective disorder is a real thing. Like, this is why I moved to the sunshine state of Florida. Maybe you too.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, how did you know then, after this incredible career, how did you know that it was time to retire? Did you get out because of the job in healthcare, or did you just find that job once you got out of the Navy?
So I think this is important for people that are reinventing themselves. I think that everybody on this earth has a purpose in life. And that purpose in life is to help others. And when you find that service to others, that purpose that God has put you on this earth, the wholeness, fulfillment that you will feel will be undeniable. And clearly, me going out and our team doing incredible things for our country on multiple missions vital to national security and protecting our country was definitely something that was purposeful, but it wasn't scratching my itch. It wasn't. And I really do believe that that was not my purpose, ultimate purpose in life. And I couldn't have got to where I was unless I went through all those doors to get there. And so when it was time for me to leave, my daughter would have had gone to 3 different high schools. Uh, and combined with this, I knew there was something bigger and better out there for me. I came home one day and I told my wife, she already knew I was talking about it, but she says, "What'd you do today, honey?" I says, "I put in my retirement paperwork." And she's like, "Okay." And so that's how I determined this. And as I'm going through this process of thinking I'm going to get out, I reached out to Dr. Coleman, who used to be the physician to President Obama, who I worked with at the White House. And I said, "Doc," I said, "do you know anybody?" Because I loved Orlando, loved Florida. We were in Hawaii at the time. I said, "Do you know anybody at Lockheed Martin or Northrop Grumman, any defense contracting in the local area that play golf with?" And he says, "Why don't you come work for the hospital?" I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I have no clinical background, never exposed to healthcare." He goes, "No." He says, "The third leading cause of death in this country is due to medical errors. It's equivalent to a plane going down every day. It's equivalent to an Arlington cemetery being filled every year with people dying in healthcare that shouldn't." And he says, "Your secrets of the nuclear Navy has never been shared in healthcare before. And we could definitely use this. And why don't you come to our healthcare system and be the expert for high reliability?" That is how I got out. And this was the door that opened for leading with love and high reliability healthcare.
I think that's such a good point that often people are looking for something very specific. And so that sort of closes them off to staying open to opportunity. You never know where something might lead. If you had been a Navy doctor, it would make sense that you transition into a hospital job. But as a nuclear subcaptain, it just kind of seems like a stretch or certainly more of a reinvention.
Absolutely. And I was shocked. I came home and after that phone call, I talked to my wife and I was very skeptical. I'd never been in healthcare. It's a different culture, but I did it not because I wanted to have a tremendous learning curve in a different culture. I could have easily went to a defense contractor and just, you know, very easily fit right in and worked not as hard, but I wanted that discomfort because I knew this was unique. I knew that this was needed in the world. And I will tell you that it was hard. It was very hard. Um, but the benefits that I received based on seeing both cultures for over 6 to 7 years and 28 years to see the differences and the similarities and what is needed in healthcare. I'm a unicorn. No one in my position in the nuclear Navy has ever done this with clinical safety. And I teach at the University of Central Florida today, both leadership, healthcare policy, healthcare quality and safety. And my contributions is simply to share the secrets of the nuclear Navy. What do they do? The highest reliable organization for over 75 years. We've never had a reactor accident. And there's 20-year-old sailors operating these highly enriched nuclear reactors. The same fuel that was in Chernobyl is the same fuel in these nuclear reactors. We've never had a reactor accident. So why aren't we sharing these secrets that has never been done before with healthcare? And it's not going to cause them to pay more money. It's going to actually save them a lot of money and a lot of time because you're going to be safer and your bottom line is going to go up. So this is my reinvention that's just started.
Well, and you said that that transition was hard. It was very difficult. Can you share a little bit about like some of the steps that you took in order to reinvent yourself from the naval captain into a healthcare expert?
So a great question. And so when I first got there, my stories of being, I was there, picture this, being behind enemy lines on a submarine, that only went so far, right? And I needed to start rolling up my sleeves to really get in, to go to the premier safety courses in healthcare and really figuring out what they are doing that the nuclear Navy is doing or not doing. So it became hard work. So I developed programs that really, oft never done before. So it wasn't something I adopted and changed it. I created programs that really was earth shattering or different. And just convincing healthcare workers that have been doing this for years to be able to adopt a new system or process, that was probably the biggest learning curve and obstacle. And so when you start something new or a path that's never been gone before or uncharted territory, it is hard. And I would say that was the biggest aha moment that I had.
And at some point, you decided to go back to school and got your doctorate in business administration. Why was that so important? What was that process like?
So great question as well. And I think that everything happens for a reason. I didn't want to get my doctorate degree. I was going to go get my master's of business administration at Rollins College. And when I was here as an instructor and as a student back in 95, when I went to nuclear power school, for those that don't know this, nuclear power school was in Orlando, Florida. And nuclear power school is a 6-month didactic course that teaches the young, new officers and enlisted the didactics in classroom of nuclear power principles. I was here as an instructor and as a student in Orlando, Florida. They closed it down in 1998 and they moved it to Charleston, South Carolina. But while I was here, I loved it. And Rollins College was here. And I always wanted to go to Rollins College. And I didn't have the opportunity because it was too long. So I wanted to continue that dream. And I applied to the MBA. And instead, I applied. Someone told me, says, no, you want to get your doctorate, a doctorate of business administration where you're learning the theory. And again, reinventing why I did this, something was telling me to do this. And one of the first leadership theories that was assigned to me was this theory called leader-member exchange. I didn't know what it was at the time. And what it is exactly what explained on how I took the worst submarine as the captain to the best submarine in the fleet. And how I did that is that I built authentic relationships. I led with love, and I'll define that. Leading with love is not weak. It's not soft. It is holding people accountable, but treating people like people instead of objects, like a lot of leaders do. And we don't teach this. And so that is where I learned this leader-member exchange theory that really opened my eyes, that it's just not my good old boy. This is what I did in the Navy. It is backed up by 50 years of academic research that shows that if you build authentic relationships, your outcomes of any leader, it will far exceed any expectations. You become a legendary leader and you build a legendary culture. So that is where I got reinvented in the academic world.
And was it hard to go back to school later in life?
Oh, yes. Yes. You can imagine the number of hours I spent in school to be a captain of a nuclear submarine and all the training that went up to that, not only tactically, but technically. You can imagine the regulatory requirements and technical competence that is required to do that. So yes, I was exhausted going to school, but I was excited to really learn in the academic world that is not taught in in the military, weekends doing papers, not watching football and just spending weekends or going to class. Yes, I started questioning myself, was this worth it? And at the time, I was questioning myself, but at the end, I couldn't be more happy.
Well, and you've mentioned your book, your first book, Beyond the Sea, Leading with Love from the Nuclear Navy to the White House and Healthcare. So now, obviously, you have reinvented yourself as an author. Tell us just a little bit about the process of that. Did you always know, I want to write a book, I have this great idea? Or was there somebody sort of pushing you saying, hey, you should put this concept into a book?
So, Amy, um, there was something driving me to write the book. And you can imagine after going to school, the last thing I wanted to do is write a book. I will tell you. But there was something telling me I needed to write this book. I wrote this book because of what I experienced in the Navy, not only my own experiences, but the leaders that really made an impact on me, both good and bad. What worked for me and what didn't work for me is not being taught in our academic or leadership courses across our nation. And that was the purpose of this, is to make this world a better place, to tell people that leading with love, call it whatever you want, compassionate, heart. Some people have a hard time hearing love because they think that you're going to spend more time and, no, leading with love is a sense of really identifying people as people. And when you do that authentically, then they will give you far and exceeding anything that you could ever imagine. But you need to have caring standards to include what are those for your organization. Success is just as important as love. I put love first, and then success far exceeded all my expectations. But if I just concentrated on success, like 90, I won't even say, but majority of the leaders out there, they were just worried about productivity. They're worried about results. And they don't understand that they have to do it in reverse. It has to be in that order. If you want results and to be seen as a legendary leader, you do it by loving your people and putting standards on. And then you will get the results far exceeding anything you could ever imagine if you just concentrated on results.
Is it possible to lead with love if you don't like the people you're leading?
You have to have the mindset that no matter who you're leading, they're human beings. And you have to understand with the mindset that they're contributing somehow, some way to this world. They might not be a contributor to your organization, but that's where you have to find out. And so the mindset of treating each person as a human, no matter what, even if you don't like them, you have to look past that. You have to be mature enough as a leader to go through. But it's not to say that you give them breaks, that you don't hold them accountable. The first thing you do as a leader, treat people like people, love every single one of them. Obviously, love, you don't romantic love. It's not going to their house and drinking beer. It is really caring for them. Define it however you were. But once you do that, you set clear standards and you communicate.
So you've spent a lot of time in government working with political leaders on all sides of the aisle. And those of us who are kind of in the trenches here, the outsiders looking in, it feels like what we see on TV is that our officials aren't really filled with a lot of love. So how do we as a country or as individuals get to a place where we can either lead or even follow with love?
So I'd like to share two stories. In my book, I talk about serving underneath President George W. Bush. And there are several chapters, not about his political decisions. I don't care if you're right, left. This book is not about politics. It is about examples of even leadership at the highest levels that led with love. And I give examples on how President Bush led with love. And one of the stories I talked about is during the height of the surge, I would be the military aide presenting at 5 o'clock in the morning at Crawford Ranch, the situation report. And it basically would be a synopsis of world events. And like clockwork, he would get up like at 5 o'clock in the morning. The lights would go on in the breezeway. He would turn on the coffee pot, go to the bathroom. And then it was my cue to walk up. And it would just be me and him underneath thousands of stars at Crawford Ranch in the summer. And the first question he would always ask me is, how did we do last night? I knew exactly what he was asking. Did we lose any soldiers, Marines, anybody, our brothers or sons? And when I would tell him Mr. President, we didn't lose anybody. He would turn into like a kid in a candy store. And he would be in his shorts, t-shirt, no socks, 5 o'clock in the morning. He would just get so happy. What are we doing today? Have you seen Barney, his dog? He was out there getting his skunk. And you'd be like a kid in the candy store. Those days that I would tell him that, Mr. President, I'm so sorry to report we lost X number. He would take the report and just walk in and wouldn't say a word. This was in the middle of just me and him, no cameras, no press. And this really showed the weight associated with that. And again, I'm not saying the decisions he made, but it really showed how much he loved this country and loved to be those people as the commander in chief. In that respect, gave me incredible opportunity. And again, he called me Navy Bob. He took the time and he had nicknames for everybody. That was empathy. That was showing respect. He took time out of the day to make you feel like a person instead of not an object. So if this can be done at the highest levels, I don't care what industry you're in or what leader you serve, you can lead with love. And the second thing that really goes into reinvention is I just recently spoke at the Bush 41 library, his father. And I don't know if you know this, that Bush 41, when he was in World War II, he was shot down as a pilot over Chichijima. It was an inhabited island by Japanese soldiers, and they were known to cannibalize the prisoners of war. And he was shot down, and he crashed about a mile out from the island, and they were coming out to get him. And he was the only one to survive out of the two other people on the plane. And he was miraculously saved by a submarine in the area. Can you imagine the odds of that? And when he was saved, he looked up to the sky and he would say, why me? Not why me that this happened to you, but why me? Why was I saved out of those two? Why was a submarine in this area? And from that point on, he had faith that his purpose in life is that I'm going to serve others. And that's what he did.
Well, as a Marine mom, my son currently serving in the Marine Corps, these stories warm my heart. So thank you for that. The thing I do know about the military is it's very structured. You're usually being told what to do and when to do it, or you're telling people what to do. And even if you're in charge, you still have somebody above you that's your boss. Or was it difficult to find your purpose on your own after leaving the military, after they kind of told you what your purpose was?
So going back to, you had a question earlier about the military has this leadership style is do what you're told, don't ask questions, never challenge superiors. And that, I think, is rooted in the problem that we have today. And in my book, I couldn't have led any more different than that. I respected everybody. Everybody had a voice. I don't care if you were the person cooking the meals. I felt that they were an integral part to the purpose of the mission. And what is happening is that we're like in quicksand. We haven't innovated or reinvented on leadership. And I'll give an example that just was an aha moment for me. When I was an executive officer on board a submarine, we deployed with SEAL Delivery Team 1. We had a James Bond submarine on the back with a tube. We would deploy with their team from Pearl Harbor to an undisclosed location. And then they would deploy this little submarine. They would go out and do what they had to do. I'm not here to talk about that mission, but I got to know that culture extensively. Their culture was not do as you're told, never challenge superiors, don't ask questions. It is completely contrary. It was a family. Everyone had a voice. Everyone was respected. If you think about love, love is defined as sacrificially of giving of oneself for the benefit of others. That is love. So if you think about the military as do what you're told, like however, you never challenge me. There's no other way to explain the Navy SEALs leadership style that we don't teach in our academics or in our leadership courses is that you sacrificially give of oneself for the benefit of others. I'm not saying you have to kill yourself or, die for your team members, but this is anything you do to sacrifice yourself for your team members and have that mindset instead of worrying about your next promotion or your title or how you can use people to advance yourself. This is leading with love. And if the Navy SEALs can do this, anybody can do this.
If you could go back and have a little chat with your 20-year-old self, or maybe your 18-year-old self, you're about to go into the Navy, what advice would you give him, knowing what you know now about reinvention?
I thought long and hard about this, Amy, and I don't think I would change anything. I have faith that everything happens for a reason, good or bad. Even when bad things happen, they're opening doors that you would never have imagined or opened if you didn't have that happen to you. I wouldn't change anything because I wouldn't be here where I am today if I didn't join the nuclear Navy, if I didn't go into healthcare.
Navy Bob, thank you so much for being here, being a guest on my podcast. If people want to know more about you, where can they find you or follow you?
So the two books are on Amazon. And if you want to go and learn more, I have a website out, www.navybob.com. And so you can go to the website, order the books, and learn about my services, which are seminars, speaking, and consulting. And what I want to do is look at companies' core values and align those behaviors to be able to have incredible outcomes and give your team practical tools on how you can lead with love. And again, to explain love is empathy, it's rounding, but doing it with empathy, authenticity, and building trust and so forth. So we are building something that has never been built before that gives leaders practical tools to build relationships and to really take their organization beyond all expectations. So Amy, such a pleasure. And I will tell you that I definitely reinvented myself. And when I listen to you and what you're doing for so many other people, this is so important. You are a trailblazer in your own right. And just want to say thank you for all the things that you're doing for countless people out there. And they need to understand that they do have the courage to reinvent themselves, and you're leading the way. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate those kind words. And I know that your story of multiple reinventions will inspire so many listeners as well. So, Navy Bob Ronska, thank you again.
Thank you.
So, what about you? Were you inspired by Navy Bob's story of multiple reinventions? Remember, reinvention isn't just about changing careers or finding a new job after retirement. It's about choosing to live life with purpose. And it's never too late to leap into something new, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. So let me leave you with this. Your stopwatch has already started. Every day you wait to step into who you're meant to become is a day that you can't get back. Don't let fear or self-doubt hold you in place. Instead, lean into the unknown, serve others, and lead your own life with love. I'm Amy Sweezey, and I can't wait to see how you choose to reinvent your story. Whether you want to do it or you have to do it, remember, reinvention is possible. Go make it happen for you today.